How's it going, everybody? It's been a little while since I've done a video, but just wanted to share one with you really quick. Let me just move this stick out of the way here. Yeah, I'm out on a walk during my lunch break at work, and definitely have wanted to share this message for a while, but I only have about 10 minutes to do it, and my alarm might go off in the middle of this video. But I'm going to talk a little bit today about seeking God in a time of evil affluence. And I think that's the word I was thinking about this morning as I was getting ready to start my day, regarding the story that I'm about to share from the book of 2 Kings. And in the book of 2 Kings, there chapter 6, I believe, maybe 5. Goodness. It's the story of Naaman the Syrian. So Naaman the Syrian is a great man who's the commander of the army of Syria, not Assyria, but Syria. And he is, he's been given a great victory, and he's a man of immense military strength and power, and also wealth. So he is basically one underneath the king of Syria, and the Lord has given him victory over Israel in many different and many nations. And so he's a man of immense power, and he's also a leper, so he has leprosy. And as one of the young girls from Israel was taken captive and is serving his wife as like a servant or a maidservant, and she says to his wife that if he just goes to Israel or Samaria, he'll find the prophet, and she was speaking of Elisha there, and he'll heal him, and it's an easy thing for him to do that. And so Naaman packs all his bags basically, and he brings with him a ton of money and silver and gold and clothing and all these riches, and then goes to Elisha, and Elisha tells him to go wash in the Jordan River 7 times, and that he'll be cleansed of his leprosy. And this really isn't kind of an outrage to Naaman. He thinks that Elisha's talking about a ritual cleansing, but Elisha's talking about something more significant. And it's kind of interesting to think about like what baptism means too, as far as like for baptism into Christ. Like, you're washed, all you have to do is washed and be clean. Like, that's what we have to do to know God and to be cleansed of our sin, is to just wash and be clean. Of course, Elijah, his succession passed to Elisha in the Jordan River, and then John the Baptist, his ministry, he was baptizing in the Jordan River, and he baptized Jesus in the Jordan. So it's all significant there. So what ends up happening is Naaman gets mad that this is what Elisha asks him to do, and doesn't think it's significant enough to ask for a miracle from God. He thinks that he should have been asked for something more significant. But his servants tell him, this is an amazing thing that he's asked you to do. He just literally said, go wash and be clean. And so then Naaman ends up doing what he's told, and he's cured of his leprosy. And then something really interesting happens after this. He goes to Elisha and says, I now know that there's only one God, and it's the God of Israel. And he says, what will you please take a gift from me? And he offers him this gift that he brought with him, which is like the equivalent of millions of dollars in our time. So he just offers, he's got cleansed of his lifelong disease, and he goes to the prophet and says, here is this gift. And Elisha basically says, no way, I'm not going to receive anything. He doesn't say this in the text, but he just says, no, I won't receive anything. And Naaman even tries to compel him and urge him to take it, but he says no, because Elisha didn't want to be perceived as taking credit for something that the Lord was responsible for. And so that's kind of the first aspect of what I'm talking about here. And with all this stuff coming out about the churches in America, the charismatic churches, many of whom are accepting gifts for miracles, and in some cases false miracles, where they fake actual miracles, and then they pressure and intimidate their congregations to give them more money for these miracles. And in some cases, these aren't even real, genuine, authentic miracles. But here you have a biblical example of a miracle, like a real, genuine miracle being performed, and the person who performs it rejecting any sort of reimbursement for this miracle or any payment for this miracle. And so I think that's a sign of a false teacher or false prophet, is that for their teaching, their words of knowledge, their healing, especially if it comes out to be fake, that's somebody who you have to discredit right away. Because the second part of the story is when Elisha's servant Gehazi ends up seeing that Elisha sent away Naaman, and he says, well, Naaman got away clean. He got away scot-free. I'm going to go and get something from him. And you have to kind of put yourself in the place of Gehazi here. He's probably upset with the Syrian army. These people have been oppressing Israel, and sees this guy Naaman as an evil person and wants to go and get something from him. And Naaman even says to Elijah, backing up a little bit, that when he goes to the house of Rimmon, where where the king of Syria worships, that the Lord would pardon him for going into this temple and bowing down to help his master out. And Elisha says, go in peace. There's no problem with that, because you believe in the Lord. Whereas Gehazi, what he does here is he goes after Naaman to go get the present that he offered Elisha. And what happens to Naaman is that the leprosy ends up clinging to him, and he is leprous, and then all of his descendants have leprosy. So there's this, and leprosy, this is kind of a side note, but leprosy at that time wasn't always what we think of today as leprosy. It could have been a number of different skin conditions. But just fascinating that I think this story has a teaching for us today in the church. And where do people go who are looking for life, who are looking for eternal life, who are looking to be cleansed of a real disease, the disease of their sin? Where do we go to look for that? Do we go to the church of God, or do we go to the church of Gehazi, who wants to be noticed, who wants to be remembered, who wants to be reimbursed for to cash in on an act of God, as it were? And I think that's an important lesson for us to all take away, is just how dangerous it becomes when you want to be the one who's noticed and to be the one who's reimbursed for what God has done in somebody's life. And even that could even be related to salvation, like when people go to your church and become saved, that you want something from them, you want them to reimburse you somehow. And I think that's a really important lesson here from 2 Kings, that leaders and just Christians should take to be humble, like even if something really miraculous happens in our life and God vindicates our ministry or our walk in a really big way that only God can, we should still be completely humble and realize that it was God was the one who did it, and we shouldn't look to take any credit for that, which is I think these churches nowadays, which are faking in the name of God, and then pressuring their people to give them more money. This is an immense issue. And then people who are going to those churches looking for life, looking for the life of Christ and looking for reconciliation, they are searching for Jesus, and what they're getting instead is people who are wanting to promote themselves in the place of Jesus. And that's a really just a tragedy. They should be, if they're seeking in the church, they should be going and hearing the genuine message. And those who give them this message, if there's a miracle behind it or if it's just a message, they shouldn't be demanding recompense for it. So those are the thoughts that I had for today, but I got to log off and hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye.